And these are the divorce without a ketubah over one who transgresses the law of Moses or Jewish practice. Now, what is the law of Moses? If she feeds him food that is not tithed, her relations with him when she is a menstruate does not separate kala. No, or vows and does not keep her vows. Now, what is a Jewish practice? If she goes outside with her hair uncovered, or if she spins in the street, or if she talks with every man, Abba Shaul says if she curses his parents in his presence. Reb Tarfon says also if she is a loudmouth woman. Now, what is a loudmouth woman? One who speaks in her house and her neighbors hear her voice. One who betroths a woman on the condition that she is not under any vows, and it is found that she is under vows, she is not betrothed. If he married her without making any stipulations, and it is found that she is under vows, she may be divorced without a ketubah. If he betrothed her on the condition that he had no body defects and she had no bodily defects, and such defects were found upon her, she is not betrothed. If he married her without making any stipulations, and bodily defects were found upon her, she may be divorced without a ketubah, and all bodily defects that disqualify Kohanim also disqualify women. If bodily defects were upon her while she was still in her father's house, the father must bring proof that these defects came about after she was betrothed and that his misfortune had caused it. But if there is if she entered the husband's authority and the husband must bring proof that she had had these defects before she was betrothed and that his acquisition was made in error, these are the words of Rav Meir. The comment, however, say when does this apply? In the case of hidden defects, but in the case of exposed defects, he cannot make a claim. If there is a bathhouse in that city, even in the case of hidden defects, he cannot make a claim because he examines her through his female relatives.
Okay. Yes, ish shenoldu lo bomimim. So now the reverse situation where the man comes up with various women. And kofin osolotzi. We don't. If the woman complains, she can't force her husband to divorce her on account of these defects. Amar Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, when is this so? But when we're talking about little women, minor cases, about the woman. So Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel says that if he develops major defects, then she has a right to go to court and force him to divorce her. However, the halacha does not follow Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel. But even if he develops a major mum, even if he had to lose a leg or something, then it would. Let me just check if it's in these cases. Yeah. So that she would not have any basis to go to Beis Din and force him to divorce her.
If he went to war and lost a leg, would that case be where she's still defect? It has to be one after she's married and there's no defect.
According to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, you're saying?
Right.
Yeah, according to Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, she can say, "I can't live with a guy who looks like this."
Okay.
Although again, it's interesting that she would have the right, that even according to him, she would have the right to do this, because a husband whose wife develops a mum while they're married. Remember, we had in the previous Mishnayos, okay, she's your wife and she developed a mum. It's your problem. It's not her problem.
Right.
Okay, so it looks like, although at first brush it seems like this is sort of skewed towards the man in this respect, that he's not allowed to do that she can't force him to divorce her if she doesn't like the mum, whereas the man has got all these tainas where he can complain about the woman's mum. That's only where she had the mum before they got married.
Right.
This Mishna test is actually talking about after they got married. So these are the situations where a woman who comes to Beis Din and says, "I can't deal with this husband," and they force him to divorce her. Mukeshchin, a person who has shrin, which Kahati explains is actually tzaras. So if he's permanently afflicted with this, then he is then she can force him to give her a divorce. But ubal polyphus, somebody who's got a polyphus, which is some kind of infection in his nasal passages or in his nose, which makes him give off a bad smell. A makametz. Makametz is somebody who gathers dog feces to use in a tannery. This is his job. Not an illustrious job, and the woman can say, I can't deal with the smell. Mitzaref nechoshes, also a copper worker. He cuts copper, also has a strong smell. A bursi, and somebody who works in a tannery, which is the tannery is the poster child of stinky jobs. Okay, bein she hayu bam ad shelo nisu u bein she mishenisu noldu. Whether this was a status quo from before they got married, or whether he started with the situation after they got married. So even if it was before they got married, the woman has got container. Look, I didn't realize it was going to be such a big deal, but it really is a big deal, and I can't deal with it. Okay, but Al Kulan Amar Rabbi Meir, Af Al Pi Shehisna Ima Yechola Hishitomar Savur Haisi Shani Yechola Lekabel, Akshav Aini Yechola Lekabel. So Rabbi Meir goes even further and he says that even if he made an explicit condition, says, listen, I work in the tannery. Love me, love my tannery. You know? And she says, okay. And then she comes up and says, I can't deal with the tannery. Then Rabbi Meir says that even if she explicitly made it tonight, she can force a divorce. Chachamim disagree. They say mekabeles al korcha chutz mimukeshkin mipnei shememakatu. Right. In all these cases where she explicitly accepted the condition, then she has no right to go back on her word, except for the case of the mukeshkin, which where they still force a divorce because having relations with his wife actually damages him further. So therefore, she is actually a danger to him, and therefore they still do force him to divorce her. Now, this can't be talking about the. I don't know what the shken is, because if it's a Matzorah from the Matzorah in the Torah, the Matzorah from the Torah has to separate from his wife anyway. So I don't understand why what this case would be. If it's the Matzorah of the Torah, then he's not living at home anyway. He's outside the camp. So maybe you were talking here about Hansen's disease, leprosy. Okay. Yeah.
I'm surprised they don't mention a fisherman or a fisher owns a fish market.
Fish what?
A fish market, one's working with fish all day. Because it's very hard to get that off. It's just, when I do something with some fish over here and I'm trying to scrub it off with soap and water, it's still there. Sure, just excuse me 1 minute. It's the car repairman. Okay, all right. Right.
Okay, so the Mishnah continues the case. There was a certain tanner who died and left his wife childless. And his brother was also in the business. And now his wife has come for Yibum. And I was happy to live with my husband, the tanner, but I don't want to live with his brother, who's also a tanner. And therefore, they compelled him to give her chalitza and not Yibum. Okay, right, Perik Perches. Okay, so now if a woman inherits property, okay, now this is before she was married, right? She was single. She inherited a piece of property, and now she gets engaged. She does erisin with her husband, and she's waiting for the year before getting married. She is allowed to trade with this property, and whatever she says it goes, and her husband has no claim on it. And it was hers before she was married, and even now that she's had erisin, she is authorized to trade with this property. However, if it came into a position after she was already married, in other words, after Erisin, Beis Shammai omrim timkor. Beis Shammai say her status hasn't changed. Beis Hillel omrim lo timkor. Beis Hillel, yeah, this is one of the chumras of Beis Hillel that we learned in Edios. Okay, that she has no permission to sell it at this point. It came to her in her husband's when she was already in her husband's domain, and therefore her husband actually has a claim on it. But for the avad, they agree that if she actually went ahead and sold it, then the sale is binding. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Lifnei Rabban Gamliel.
She sold it or gave it away. Either one.
Yeah, she said sold it or gave it away. Correct. Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Lifnei Rabban Gamliel. So the students came in front of Rabban Gamliel and asked the question, said, logically speaking, since the husband has earned his has taken possession of his wife, why doesn't he also take possession of her property? And Rabban Gamliel answers them not with a svara, but with something that's kind of like a tikkun olam kind of thing. Amar lahen al chadashin anu boshin. And the situation is that if she that once she's married, if she tries to sell the property, then the husband can go back to the buyers and gazam them and say, sorry, here's your money back. That property is for my use. Okay, so already that's something that we're kind of embarrassed to do, because we don't like to break the market. We don't like it when people have come to a legal agreement with each other to buy and sell, and then somebody else comes and says, I'm reversing this.
So that's what this means when it says we are ashamed of the
we're ashamed of the fact that we have to do this.
Right.
Okay. And now you want to come and add to the list of things that we have to do, that including when she sold it when she was Erisin. So that's really his answer to them, is that we don't like to intervene in the market. However, if the property came to her after she was already living with her husband, she inherited it after she was living with her husband, that now, if this property is 100% fallen into her husband's rights to use for Paris, the nichse melug automatically, and if she tries to sell it, then the husband can reverse the sale and claw it back from the buyers. Then he says, however, if the property fell into her hands after before she was married, before she was living with her husband, and then she got married, Rabban Gamliel married nasna kayam. So Rabban Gamliel says that if she actually went ahead and sold, even though she wasn't allowed to, because it had fallen to her while she was only in Erisin and not in Nisuin, her husband's got a weaker claim on him, therefore he can't gazam the buyers. Amar Rabbi Chanina ben Akavya, Amru lifnei Rabban Gamliel. He said, they came and complained to Rabban Gamliel and said, Hoil v'zacha be'isha lo yizke ben nachasim. Shouldn't since the husband has taken possession of the wife, shouldn't he take possession of the nechasim and be able to gazamp the buyers? Amar lahem ala chadashim anu boshin ela she'atem megaltilim aleinu es yishanim. Again, the same argument, not an argument in svara, but an argument in like having a functioning marketplace.
Yeah.
That we don't like to intervene in legal sales, and even though it might not be 100% right, but we prefer not to break the market.
Okay. Sorry, Shuli. Okay.
Hey, Aleph.
Although they said a virgin collects 200 zuz and a widow collects 100, if she wishes to add even 10,000 zuz, he may add. If she became a widowed or divorced either after Erisin or Nisuin, she collects all. And Elazar ben Azariah says after Nisuin, she collects all, If the Erison, a virgin collects 200 zuz and a widow 100 because he wrote it for her only on the condition of marrying her. Rabbi Yehuda says, if he wishes, he may write for a virgin a contract of 200 zuz, and she writes, I have received from you 100, and for a widow 100, and she writes, I have received from you 50 zuz. Rameya says, anyone who undertakes to give a virgin less than 200 or a widow less than 100, the intimacy is an illicit intimacy. A virgin is given 12 months from the time her husband has asked her to provide herself, and as a woman is given, so is a man given to provide himself. A widow is given 30 days. If the time arrived that they were not married, they eat of his food, then they may eat of his truma. Red Tarford says she is given all of it from truma, and Rabbi Akiva says half ordinary food and half truma. A yavam does not confer upon his sister-in-law the right to eat of truma if she has been 6 months before her husband and 6 months before the yavam, or even all of them before her husband, less one day that she spent before the yavam, and all of them before the yavam, less one day than she spent before her husband. She may not eat of truma. This is the original ruling that the court came after them said a woman may eat of truma until she enters the chuppah. If one consecrated his wife's handiwork,
we're done. That's 3.
That was it?
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay.
Hey, Yavamas Yud Aleph Daled.
If a woman's baby became confused with a daughter-in-law's baby, and they grew to adulthood and married and died, the sons of the daughter-in-law perform chalitza, but may not perform yibum, because it is uncertain which is their brother's wife and which is their father's brother's wife. The sons of the grandmother, however, may perform either chalitza or yibum, since their uncertainty is which is their brother's wife and which is their brother's son's wife. If the certain ones die, the uncertain ones perform chalitza but not yibum with the grandmother's sons, the widows, because it is uncertain which is their brother's wife and which is their father's brother's wife, and which is the daughter-in-law's sons. Widows, one of the uncertain ones performs chalitza, and the other one they perform yibum. If the child of a Kohen's wife become confused with her slave's child, they may both eat truma. They receive one portion at the threshing floor, and they may not contaminate themselves with the dead, and they may not marry either qualified or disqualified women. If they became adults and emancipated each other, they may marry only women fit to marry a Kohen, and they may not contaminate themselves with the dead. But if they contaminated themselves, they do not incur 40 lashes. They may not eat of truma, but if they ate, they are not required to pay the principal and the additional fifth. They do not receive a portion of the threshing floor, but they may sell truma and keep the proceeds. They do not receive a portion of the sacred temple objects, and we do not give them sacred objects, but what is theirs is not taken from them. They are exempt from giving the upper foreleg, the jaws, and the stomach. His firstborn animal should be left to pasture until it becomes blemished, and both the stringencies which apply to Kohanim and those which apply to Yisraelim are imposed upon him.
One more?
One more?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was finished. I'm sorry.
Just a long one.
Okay, that was Yud Aleph Vav now. If a woman did not wait 3 months after her divorce or a widowhood from her husband, but remarried and gave birth, and it is not known whether it was a 9-month child or the former husband's and a 7-month-old child, or by the latter, if she also had other sons from the first and second husbands, these sons perform chalitza, but not yibum. Certainly he performs chalitza for them, but not yibum. If he had brothers by the first and second husbands, though not through his mother, he may perform either chalitza or yibum, whereas one must perform chalitza, after which the other one may perform yibum. Okay, Truvos. I'm sorry?
Beta.
Oh, I was going to Truma first. All right, where I put my beta, I put it over here. Okay. I put it down here. It's right in front of me. Okay. Aleph. Okay. An egg that was laid on Yom Tov. Beis Shammai says it may be eaten, but Beis Hillel says it may not be eaten. Beis Shammai said, leaven in the volume of olive and comments the volume of a date. The Beis Hillel says this or that, the volume of an olive. One who slaughters a beast or fowl on Yom Tov, Beis Shammai says he may dig with a spade and cover the blood. Beis Hillel says he may not slaughter unless he had the earth prepared from the day before. But they agree that if he already slaughtered, he should dig with a spade and cover the blood with earth, for the ashes of a stove are considered prepared. Beis Shammai says we may not move the ladle from under one dovecote to another, but may lean it from one window to another. But Beis Hillel permits it. And Beis Hillel says one should not take doves out of the dovecote on Yom Tov.
Beis Shammai say?
Beis Shammai says, who did I say?
You said Beis Hillel? Yeah.
Oh, all right, they get along okay. Beis Shammai says one should not take doves out of the dovecote on Yom Tov unless one had them before Yom Tov. The Beis Hillel says he may not stand and say this one and that one I will take.
Okay, Shumos, Yud Aleph.
Yud Aleph?
Yud Aleph.
I have, and Rabbi Yossi says anything that is stewed with beet is forbidden since it imparts a flavor. Reb Shimon says cabbage from irrigated soil with cabbage from rainwatered soil is forbidden because it absorbs. Rabbi Yehuda says all things cooked together are permitted except with meat. And Yochanan ben Nori says liver rend is forbidden, but it is not rendered forbidden because it excludes but does not absorb. If an egg is cooked with forbidden spices, even its yolk is forbidden because it absorbs. And liquid in which truma has been stewed or pickled is forbidden to non-priests. One may not put fig cake or dry cakes into fish brine because he spoils them, but one may put wine into brine. One may not perfume oil, but one may make wine into honeyed wine. And one may not boil truma wine because it diminishes it, and Rabbi Yehuda permits it because he improves it. Okay. We have oleos. Okay, Yud Beis Vav. In the case of a beam that was placed from one wall to another, and there is tumah underneath it, if there is a handbreadth, it spreads tumah underneath its entirety, and if not, tumah penetrates upward and downward. Did I say that right? Yes. How long a perimeter will have a width of a handbreadth? If the beam is round, the perimeter must be 3 handbreadths. If it is square, the perimeter must be 4 handbreadths because square exceeds a circle by 1/4. In the case of a pillar lying on its side outdoors, if its circumference is 24 handbreadths, tumah spreads under its sides. If not, tumah penetrates upward and downward. If an olive-sized piece of corpse adheres to a threshold, Reb Eliezer considers the house tameh, whereas Reb Yehuda declares it tahor. Yeshua. The piece of corpse is located below the threshold. It is ruled half and half. If it adheres to the lintel, the house becomes tameh. Rabbi Yossi declares it tahor. The piece of corpse is located inside the house. Someone who touches the lintel becomes tameh, and if someone touches the threshold, Rabbi Eliezer considers him tameh. Rabbi Yeshua says, from a handbreadth and below, he remains tahor, and for a handbreadth and above, he becomes tameh. Okay. And Avodah Zorah. These are permitted to be eaten. Milk that is an idolater milk while a Jew is watching him, and honey and honeycomb, even though they are dripping, and they do not qualify a beverage in regard to susceptibility to tumah. And preserves into which they are not accustomed to put wine and vinegar, and taras, which is not minced, and brine, which has in it kibbutz's fish, and a leaf of kalitas, and a cakes of softened olives. Rabbi Yossi says those with pits ready to fall out are prohibited. Locusts, which come from the shopkeeper's basket, are prohibited, while those from storage area are permitted, and the same applies to truma. All images are prohibited because they are worshipped once a year. These are the words of Reb Meir. But the Chachamim say none is prohibited except one that has in its hand a staff, a bird, or a sphere. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says anyone that has anything in its hand. If one finds fragments of images that are permitted, if he found the figure of a hand or the figure of a foot, these are prohibited because such objects are worshipped.
Um,
All right, thank you. I'm sorry for the
Thank you.
interruptions there. Sorry for
No
that.
worries.
Okay, and the Mitzvah, are you doing anything? It's tonight's
Over there.
Lag BaOmer.